My name is LaShawn Prime, and I am a missionary at Orphanage Emmanuel in Wamaka, Honduras. I handle all the calls throughout the day. Somebody fell, somebody this, somebody's got a fever. I manage the ins and out of teams medically that come, that want to come and serve, whether it's a doctor that says, hey, I'm going to be there 3 days. Is there anything I can help you with? And then I'm also responsible for the Centro de Salud, which is our health department, and vaccinating all of our children that are 5 and under. Honduras is one of the poorest countries in Central America, and information on children's rights is very difficult because the journalists and those that investigate are often murdered or silenced as they try to bring attention to the lack of children's rights in Honduras. The children of Honduras are not considered a person with rights, so they are not considered what's the best interest of the child doesn't apply because they're not seen as a person that actually has rights in the nation. The system is overcrowded, there's not enough workers, there's not enough help to actually make a dent in that, I think, is probably the bigger struggle in Honduras. Honduras does and is trying to change that. That is something that their social system is trying to work on. The problem is that it's a lot. There's a lot of orphanages that aren't great. Currently, according to the World Bank, there is still 50.3% of the population living in poverty. And so that's half the country is living in what we consider poverty, and what poverty actually is are two different things. And so these are people who are living on less than probably $1.75, $2 a day. And so they can't afford clean water, they can't afford food. And so they often send their children to work because they can't make it from day to day. Your day laborers and things like that may only eat once a day. All forms of sex trafficking and sex slavery and sex abuse towards children for financial gain is widespread. Child brides still exist in Honduras, and it's still something that is not seen necessarily as wrong. The majority of street children in Honduras live in Tegucigalpa and San Pedro Sula, but they are seen as vermin and criminals. Because of this cycle of poverty in Honduras, the poor stay poor, the rich stay rich, leads to high violence, high crime. San Pedro Sula is still the second most dangerous city in the world. One third of the homicides are committed in Latin America, but it only has 8% of the population. And so that is the environment that these children are coming out of most of the time. And so, people come and visit Emmanuel, and it is beautiful. The goal is to see that there's a place in the middle of that, of hope. We try our very best as staff to provide a Christ-centered environment where they can learn about Jesus Christ. I think sometimes people ask me questions like, do you think your kids are better off for living at Orphanage Emmanuel? And my response is I think they have a better start to life. And so some of them choose to live for Christ and some of them don't. And some of them choose to reject it. And a lot of that depends on the Lord and Him ministering and His Holy Spirit showing up and moving in the hearts of children. These children, some of these kids have been through unspeakable trauma, and getting past that and seeing Christ can be quite challenging. None of us have a say in how we start this life. And some of us get a worse start than others. And we interject Christ at some point in that cycle of whatever they're going through. And some of them are stuck in that. They're stuck in a mindset of what they've been through to no fault of their own. But, those wounds go deep. And only Christ can really go in there and perform what He needs to perform so that healing can come. We very much educate them in the world that they live in and that the world that they are going to be going to when they age out of the system. And we want Christ to be their sustainer, because no system should be our sustainer. We get some kids that do come back and they share what they're doing, and they just come to say hello to David. That is technically their father. And some we never see again, and so we don't know. But they get released, and at that point, they've always belonged to the Father, but at that point they belong to Him, and the decisions they make are between them and the Father. And so it's a very futuristic ministry, I think, because you are preparing children. And so the fruit of what you do every day may not be seen every day, because you're trying to prepare them for tomorrow and for tomorrow and for tomorrow. The current health crisis of COVID-19 that has affected our nation, has affected every nation around the world, has devastated Honduras. Public transportation is still shut down. Most businesses are still closed. The hospitals are only taking COVID patients. Pharmacies are open, grocery stores are open, and banks are open, and gas stations are open. But you're only allowed to circulate the city once every 2 weeks. And so my resident ID card ends in 7, so my day is Tuesday. And so every other Tuesday, I can go to the bank and I can go to the grocery store. And well, that's great if you financially are able to do that. You know, your day laborers can't buy groceries for a 2-week span. And so, you know, they buy groceries daily. And so now that the weight of that has set in, you know, people are starving at this point. The Orphanage Emmanuel is doing what they can to help the surrounding community of Waimeka. They're doing food bags of rice, beans, salt, and sugar. You know, the orphanage is self-sufficient for the most part. We have our own farm, our own tilapia house, our own vegetable farm, our own livestock, our own chickens, our own goats, that kind of thing. And so we are, for the most part, self-sufficient, but we don't have grain. But the ports are still closed in Honduras, and the country's not stable. So at this point, even if the ports were to be opened, we probably still wouldn't send containers, because they probably would not make it to the orphanage. They would get hijacked somewhere in between. So until the country actually resembles a more stable nation, our containers are at a standstill, and they have been since February. It was stressful, I think, like the first 3 months, because I felt guilty. This was not my plan. Sorry. I just wanted to go home. And I know all things work together for the good of those that love God and are called according to his purpose. And so I would just, I walked almost every day for hours. And I would just, because I had nothing else to do. We were quarantined. And I would just say, I don't want to miss your purpose because I'm frustrated or I'm sad or whatever. Because you can get so emotional that you can't hear. And I said, but I can't change any of this either. It's not within me to change. And so I think that I don't know all there is to know about these past 5 months and what it's all meant and what it's all for. But I also know that it was never about me personally. I was a casualty of a disease and an illness, a pandemic. One of the things I did was I contacted the nurse there and I asked them their medication situation, because with things like this, I'm like, we're probably pretty depleted, because the pharmacies are depleted, because the factories are shut down. And so, I contacted council. I told them the situation, and I said, is there any way that you guys would be willing to do a donation of medicine? And so they did. It's where we are right now with COVID, and so it has affected every nation to some level. Some are more devastated than others by it, and Honduras is one of the ones that has been devastated by it. Orphan care is not about an organization. It's about the Father. It's about his love and what he's commanded us to do in regards to the fatherless and the orphans. And so, organizations are just a means, but the core of that, if it's not Christ, then there's no healing. My hope and my prayer is that as I walk and carry and do the things that I am called to do there, which, yes, is medical, but that's not the end all. that they see Christ, and that they see something in me that pushes them further to Him, then I was a success.